You're faced with over 35,000 choices a day.
I don't know whether to brush my teeth or chew gum.
Don't get lost in your head. Make better decisions instead. Let's talk choices, decisions, life. Repeat. You're now tuned in to Hindsight the Podcast with your host, Lee Jones.
Hey, Amy, welcome to Hindsight the Podcast. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Thank you. So I was just mentioning how I'm super happy and excited that Amy had accepted the invitation to come on Hindsight the Podcast. And let me tell you just a quick intro on Amy, and you can fill in all the missing blanks that I have. So Amy is an actor and a producer. She's been in movies like Frank and Lola, Gone, and The Lears. She's also appeared in over 100, probably maybe 200 now, commercials, several popular TV shows, and has really been in the business opposite a lot of top name actors and actresses. I guess that's proper. Is it proper to say actors and actresses, or do I just say actors?
I don't know. People always ask the question. I'm like, I just say actor just because it's easier.
All right. So besides some of the biggest actors in the business, right? So how you doing, Amy?
I am well on this rainy day in LA.
It is
rainy.
It's windy here. So I'm in Marietta, so about 80 miles away from you. And I know LA is really getting slammed.
Yes. We've not. Yeah, I'm just yes. It depends on yes. That's so funny. Is Marietta, the lady who just house sat for me while I was gone. Her next house sit was in Marietta. Is it sunny? I hope maybe you have some sun.
Nope.
Got none.
It's pretty cloudy, and it's a little bit of rain and a lot of wind.
Yes, no wind, but just torrential. There's a reprieve right now in the rain, but I think I've been out of town every time this time of year when we get torrential rain.
Right.
So I've sort of missed it.
Oh.
And because I don't remember it last year, I don't feel like we got rained on as hard, but I guess we did because there were mudslides last year. But yeah, just like a full day of raining, which I'm not complaining because we need it. But then again, our soil can't handle it because it's so dry.
Yeah, because you get it all at the same time instead of
it's not just divided throughout the year. It's like one time in the year it decides it wants to rain, and then we're flooded.
Absolutely. So that's crazy.
Yeah.
So I mentioned you were an actor. And you do a lot of commercials. So I know you're doing commercials now, and I'll tell you what. So, well, let me just start from the beginning, right? So, during COVID, we all had some time, and I was just going through Instagram and just looking at things that I felt were interesting to me, and I came across your quarantine therapy session, right? And what was captivating, it seemed almost as if it was like maybe you were doing a teleconference on the very first one, right? And it was kind of quirky. I say quirky. It's kind of quirky. In your comedic timing, I thought was really, really nice, right? And it just was engaging, and it kind of encompassed a lot of things like the uncertainties and what do we do now? Like, I'm here by myself, those type of things. And I think you talked about your cat in the episode, right? But what made you in that time and space? You know what? I'm not going to ask you a question. This is how I became introduced to Amy Argyle. That is the point of this whole thing, right?
Quarantine therapy.
Quarantine therapy. But then when I started looking and diving a little bit deeper into your content, I started to see a different person, right? I started to see you, right? And I think I told you that when I reached out to you, how you are so open and authentic. And you just put it out there, and I really appreciate it because it really made me feel like I knew you, right? And so I reached out, and you said yes. So here we are. All right.
Here we are.
Thank you. So you're so good. I think you're so good at what you do. So what made you get into acting, or when did you have that notion that you wanted to do this?
Ah, it's so interesting because you remember you're sort of like, this is kind of overview of what we might talk about. And so I was like, yeah, mine isn't a normal. What is normal? Maybe a usual. I originally, I did not grow up in a household where sort of extracurriculars were pushed. It was education.
Okay.
Education and religion. Um, and so I did a Princess and the Pea in second grade. But as far as acting specifically, it wasn't until I had left home. I ran away from home. Whole nother podcast. And I was working as I quit school. I was in college. It was my first semester. I finished my first semester of freshman year. 18 credits, I will add.
Okay.
My second semester and on my own for the first time, and life was like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I ended up leaving school because I just couldn't. I'd never been on my own before, so I was very, very, very sheltered. A very strict, sheltered childhood. So being on my own, living in an apartment with having to pay bills and having a job for the first time and going to school and having to manage my own life, I sort of was flailing. And I ended up quitting school, and I was working as a nanny
Okay.
for a family that I had met through a job in Texas.
Okay.
So I don't remember what the newspaper was, but the guy who kind of led that, he ended up hiring me to be the nanny for his kids. And at the time I was sort of like a live-in nanny until I moved out. But I was, this was the day when we had Walkman and the radio. And I was listening to my Walkman, and I heard an ad for a company called John Robert Powers. Okay. And for anybody that doesn't know what that is, I don't even know if they're still in existence, but it was like a bar or whatever, take classes, acting and modeling. And then I don't know what happens after that with them. I was like, I don't know. That kind of sounds cool.
Right.
So I went to this open call. You had to take a picture, just a candid picture of yourself with you, and so you go in, and I did a mock commercial for, I think Coke or something. And it was my first time. And after I did it, I was like, I remember having the thought, that was cool. And then I went into I stood in line, and I go into this room, and I sit down across from this lady, and she looks at my picture, and she's like, you're very photogenic. And I was like, thank you. And so I don't remember the cost. It was either $1,200 or $12,000, either of which I didn't.
Wow.
So she was like, and I don't remember what the program was, how many weeks or whatever. But I think it was something that there was really no guarantee of anything. Maybe they taught us some stuff. I don't know. But my answer was no, I don't have this money. And she kept asking me, well, parents, and I'm like, no, I ran away from home.
Right.
To them. There's no one that can pay the $1,200 or $12,000. So I go back to the family, Gary and Rose, and they're no longer together. But
okay,
just mentioning people. And I tell them about it, and they're like, well, if it's something you're interested in, why don't you go to look for an acting school? I was like, there's acting schools? Didn't know that. Because again, I grew up very much just school oriented, the base, what we grow up in school, math, reading, science, history. I was pushed to pick a major before I left high school. And so I was like, I want to be a pediatrician. And then my aunt who raised me, she was like, no, you need to be specific. What kind of pediatrician? And I'm like, I don't, surgeon. I'm going to be a pediatric surgeon at 17. This I know.
Goodness. Okay.
And so, so all my classes were pre-med biology in high school. And then going into college, it was chem lab and biology and everything, which I did enjoy. But anyway, so yeah, I was like started looking up acting schools, and I found what at the time was called KD Studios, but now I think it's like KD College. And it was accredited then, but now it's like a full blown film and theater and television and musical theater program. So it's definitely expanded since I've gone there. And I ended up, I looked up like, what did you need to get in? And you had to like pick 2 different monologues, and you go in for an interview. And I'd never done this before. I didn't know what I was doing. But T.A. Taylor saw something. Because I don't think that they accept everyone. I don't know. But he saw something, and I got accepted into the school, and it was a 15-month program, like a 2.5-year program. Yeah. So maybe a little bit.
Okay.
15 months, but I think a year and a half program. And yeah, that's how I got my start at 19 years old, 19 years old.
So 19 years old. So when did you get your first paying gig, and how did that feel?
I think my very first paying gig was a commercial. So there was a casting director that would come to the school, and she would teach sometimes. Lynn Ambrose. Hey, Lynn. She would come in, and so she cast a Whataburger, which is a fast food restaurant in Texas, and I think in the South. So it was a Whataburger commercial, and I was cast as a real person who was like a real customer, which I was at the time. And I had to talk about how much I loved the chicken strips. So that was my first commercial. That was my first paying job as an actor. And it was, I think I was in my second semester. So I was probably still 19.
Oh, nice. Okay.
At the time, 19 or 20. Yeah.
So
and how did it feel? I don't remember. I mean, I was excited, I'm just starting, and I get my first commercial. It was like, this is cool. So it was exciting, and I think I booked it with a couple friends. Like some other friends were on it too. So yeah, I think fun.
That's awesome.
The thing that came to mind.
I was excited when I saw you the first time on a commercial. Right, it's kind of cool. It was kind of cool, right? Because I had seen the commercial, but I think how you see it, right? But then it's like, hey, that's Amy, right? And it's her, and it was the Home Depot commercial, and then I saw you in another commercial as well, too. So that's kind of cool. And what's even cooler, I guess I should say cooler, is when you showed a little bit of the behind the scene on the Home Depot one. So how much of that you put that big camera on your shoulders and over your head? How long did that take? How much did you interact with the filming crew, and did you get to do any videoing of other parts of the commercial?
That was the only part that I kind of captured. A lot of times, especially as the more I do it, the less I find I'm filming on set. Okay. I know a lot of actors that's like they take all kinds of behind the scenes, and I just sometimes I forget sometimes.
Yeah.
So I'm like chatting or whatever. That was I know that there was some other video. I know like an actor, but it like got lost in like Instagram messages. I know another actress that she was one of the background actresses, and I knew her. And she took a picture or something, maybe a video. But that's kind of all I got to do. But that particular, wearing the I forget what it was called specific, like it has a specific name, but I'll just call it the rig.
Okay.
Wearing that on, so that was introduced to me at the wardrobe fitting. The director was like, "Hey, so you're going to be wearing this contraption," and I was like, "Oh, I am." Cool. Like, I'm like, cool, okay. And then when they put it on, it was like, oh shit, this is different. This is heavy. And I'm strong, but when you have something that's a helmet on your head that is then connected, the camera itself is then connected to that piece that is connected to your head.
Yeah.
It wasn't like it was on my shoulder, like my body. It was connected to my head. So that was sort of what was uncomfortable and I had to, my head movements were what created the POV of in the commercial when you see just the phone and the Home Depot app. So that's where I was filming.
Got it.
So all this stuff you see that's my point of view, that all is what I shot.
That's cool.
So it's cool. So it's like, oh, so I'm like the camera op. I'm the camera op.
Yeah.
A little disappointing that SAG apparently did not want, they approved it as, just part of my job. And I'm like, that's not really part of my job. So yeah, now that I've posted it and some people, especially casting director was like, yeah, you should have gotten paid extra. I'm like, I'm going to go back to SAG and have a conversation. Because we asked, we were like, hey, I talked to my agent about it. And I'm like, I think I should get paid like a bump of some sort because I'm doing a whole nother job. I'm doing a whole nother department's job.
Right.
Rather than just acting. It's kind of like I'm doing a stunt, but I'm not doing a stunt, but I'm operating the camera.
Right.
But I was denied.
Oh.
We were denied extra pay.
Well, at least you asked. Maybe you could.
Fun.
Yeah. It looked cool. It looked cool. It looked cool for me.
Days.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely cool. Anytime you get to do something different, it's cool. But there is another aspect of the business aspect of it.
Of course.
Yes, doing a stunt is fun. And I'm one of those people of like, yeah, I want to be the one to try the stunt. If I then figure out that, nope, I can't do it, cool, have the stunt. But I at least want to try it.
Right.
But I also need to get paid for it. This is outside of the regular scope of just being an actor.
Right.
So yeah, those things are all fun. I enjoy it. But yes, I also want to be compensated.
All right. So we're talking about the positives, right?
Yeah.
But we know this industry is a lot of pros and cons and a lot of ups and downs, right? And I was listening to one of your podcasts and you mentioned how the industry almost or could feel like an abusive relationship. Right? Mm-hmm. What do you do to settle yourself in these down times?
So I have to say that statement is not mine. I got that from somebody else, and I was like, "Yep, that's it." I forget who said it.
Okay,
Leslie Kahn might have said it. She's a teacher here in Los Angeles, but it might have been somebody else. But it definitely came from someone else, and I just gleamed onto it. But first and foremost, you have to have a life outside of acting. You have to harness relationships and interests and things to occupy your time, especially your downtime, but just to be a part of your life so your life isn't just this, because that informs this career. It also makes it much more fuller, but you also, again, you're having other experiences rather than just, your acting experiences. You have to have a sense of self.
Okay.
I didn't when I first started. I mean, I was 19 years old, coming out of a very sheltered environment. I had no clue who I was, like absolutely none. Mm-hmm. So this is definitely through acting. That's been a gift of this career in studying, being able to learn who I am. But it also, like outside of it, lots of therapy and different types of healing modalities. So you have to have, you need to know who you are, how you relate to people, your positives and negative, your strengths and weaknesses, so to speak. Go to therapy, figure out your stuff,
right?
Heal it. Have healthy and joyous and warm and encompassing relationships outside of the business. Your home needs to be a sanctuary. Like your mental, physical, and emotional life needs to be rich and strong.
Okay.
And fulfilled. Otherwise, yes, this career will beat you down. And even in all of that, there are moments when you still feel like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this?
Right. And
you have to have a strong why, and know what that is. And it changes. It can change. I think when I very first started, this was an outlet. I didn't have an outlet growing up to actually like really just be. everything was compressed inside. And so acting was a way for me and to, over the years, to release and heal and figure out life. And so now it's evolved into me wanting to share the richness that I've gotten with other people, and to bring joy and lightness and gravity and thought to the world. I went off in a whole nother tangent.
No, you were good.
I mean, you just have to be you have to have balance in your life. You have to find balance and harmony. Have a strong spiritual practice, whatever that is for you, and be grounded in your life, because there's so much in this business that can just take you, especially when you're on a red carpet, or you're working on a big project, and you get flown first class, or you're picked up in a car, and people are always wanting to cater to you, which sometimes can be so annoying. Just like, I'm fine just sitting here on the floor. I'm good. I bought my coffee with me. I'm good. But thank you. You can get wrapped up in all of that stuff, right? All the fluff of the business, of the entertainment world. And I haven't experienced it hugely, but in the small ways that I have, and in that I see other people, it's like you have to be really grounded in who you are and in life, to be able to not get really swept up in it and, become this horrible egotistical person. Although people might have already been that way, and it just exacerbates that behavior.
There's that. There's always that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you just took a trip. Tell us where you went and what is your purpose?
So the particular trip that you're speaking of, I just came back from Tanzania, where I was for the second time. So the first time I was there, I went with another friend, and we met a friend there, and we climbed Kilimanjaro.
Hold on. How was that?
It was amazing and crazy and life-changing and
cool.
Everything.
Yeah.
8 days of that I will never forget.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Yes. I mean, there's a lot there, but yes, that's the nutshell. So I had gone in December of 2020, and with my friend Constance, we met our friend Andy, who had already done the climb prior to us. And I ended up staying after. I planned to stay longer in Tanzania. Now, they were both born in Africa, in Cameroon. So this is my first time in Africa. So I was like, I just want to, I want to stay, I want to explore. So I went to Zanzibar, and one of my next door neighbors actually used to live in Tanzania. He introduced me to a friend of his who lives there, who's from there. And he has an expedition company. His name's Onesmo, and he owns East African Voyage. And so through his expedition company, we had climbed through a different company, Climb Kili, but through his company, I went to Zanzibar, and then I did a Maasai experience. And so the Maasai tribe is in parts of Tanzania and Kenya. And so I stayed out at a lodge called Osiligilai Lodge, and it's run by a group of Maasai. Or it's run by a gentleman named William, but everyone that works there is Maasai. And I really just had a lovely time learning about them, but also the women that I met, the group of women that I met, just, wow.
Yeah.
It was just a beautiful experience meeting these women and being embraced by them and welcomed by them.
Right.
And I feel like, especially for Black people in America, but I think for anyone, that anyone who goes to Africa has a transformative experience. I don't think I've heard anyone who's ever of any race that's gone to Africa and said they had it was a horrible thing.
Okay.
It's just the richness of history and just the beauty of the people just was amazing.
the photo you had with the late, well, you had, I think, two, like, you can see the love and the admiration between you two. You know what I mean?
They're just so, and there was a moment like I kind of, and it, you had a question that was listed later about being biracial.
Right.
There was a part of me that was like, will they accept me? Will they accept me?
Right.
And I just felt so enveloped with love by these women I'd never met, but I was like, oh, we are related. we are related.
Right.
And so this trip was, and so I bought like all this stuff from them the first time. So the Maasai women make these beautiful beaded jewelry, and some things are like for, home goods or whatever, but what I learned is the different colors of beading a lot of times signify the different tribes, like where where the Maasai are from.
Right.
There's different colors, and I didn't know that. So my thought was, I was like, when I went the first time, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm definitely coming back. I'm going to come back. I'm going to take this stuff and I'm going to sell it in the States. So I'm providing, I'm buying it from them. And then I get to come back and I get to share it with friends.
Right.
And other people that I meet. And so that's what this trip was to go back, see them again, and to get more goods from them, to, be able to, again, support them. And I did that also at a Maasai lodge that, or a Maasai market that's in Arusha city itself. A lady that I met, and then it ended up being a lot of different people.
Right.
From, it's like, don't stick me in a market when people are like, please come here, because I feel bad, and I then like, okay, fine, I'll go to you. Okay, fine. Okay, fine. But I'm glad, it's. I think money well spent. I know that, that helped them.
Right.
But it was so great. And then I also met a little girl that I have been sponsoring her school for the last 2 years. Last year, I had help from friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to attempt to do that every year now, just to do raise money.
Right.
So that it's not just me. So it's a community effort. So I met Faith and her mom, Pendo. And, I read that was part of what I, wanted to do while I was there. And so that was really wonderful to do, and sort of, brainstorming of like, how can I help her mom also to have a better, life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's who I've never been to Africa.
You have to. Well, okay. So in part also, I'm partnering with East African Voyage to do a group trip.
Right.
So I want to do, the plan is to do a group trip in December of this year and take people to do the Maasai experience and safari. And then people, of course, afterwards are free to do whatever they want, explore more areas of Tanzania, go to Zanzibar, or go to Kenya, or whatever, because there's so much to do.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe?
Yeah, maybe. Definitely keep me in the loop on that. Bottom line, I'd love to go to Africa. Because I'm interested, but I remember the first time I went to Alaska, right? Which is no Africa, but it's Alaska. And this was back when I was 21. And in my mind, I thought ice and people riding on horses and igloos, right? So so when I get there and there's a city and there's a mall and an ice skating rink and, things like that, it's like, wow, it was an eye opener, because before that point, I had only been to California. I'm from Maryland, by the way. I'd only been to California, Virginia, and that was it. And so I go, so I have a closed mind on the world and things, right?
Yeah.
And so your point about going to Africa and life changing, right? Everywhere you go is an opportunity to expand your mind, right? To expand your thought and your ideas. Yeah, we touched a little bit on biracial. I don't want to jump into that yet. I do want to talk about one of the short films you did called Chocolate. Now that one, I mean, I watched it, and I'm going to tell you why it was emotional for me, right? Because I am familiar with Skid Row. San Diego has has its areas as well, and definitely Baltimore, where I'm from. And you see individuals, and the first thing you potentially do is justify why they're not important to your life right now, right? And you kind of overlook them, right? But if you allow yourself to be human, which I try to do,
Mm-hmm.
you start to think like, who is this person?
Right.
You know,
How did they
what were they? Go ahead.
No, like how did they get there?
Yeah, how did they get there? Exactly. And when I saw Chocolate, it gave at least a story and an explanation. Like, this is a normal person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who, not to tell the story, but really she got lost,
Yeah.
right? Because she was going through. So tell me about one, the story, how you maybe were impacted by it,
Mm-hmm.
how the experience was in playing the part that you played, which was amazing, and just anything dealing with that. I thought that was a really good use of my time.
Oh,
You know what I mean? Watching that short
oh,
film.
thank.
So tell me your experience.
So I I that was something that I actually submitted myself for. I saw the film and character breakdown, and it was actually for the lead role, what I originally had submitted for.
Okay.
And what the director had written, Tiago Dadalt, what he wrote as to why he was making this film immediately drew me in.
Right.
And it was literally, in essence, it was about giving a voice to the voiceless, giving um, a look into the life of someone who is homeless, but like, what was her life out before this? Like, what led her to get to this place? And this was the first time that I ever I hunted him down. I submitted for it. I didn't hear anything. And a
Right.
lot of times, you submit for stuff and you don't hear anything. So I found him on Facebook at the time and I added him. I wrote him a message and I added him. And, he didn't see it.
Okay.
And I think I went back and maybe a couple weeks later or something, and I wrote him again, and he had since, I think, added me. And then he was like, oh my gosh, I just had auditions. He was like, send a self-tape. So I sent in a self-tape. He loved my audition. There were some things, and I mean, it's been talked about before in, I think, other interviews. The producer wanted a specific look for the for the lead role. And I was like, well, I could do this. I can straighten my hair. So we were going to try, and then it didn't work out, like scheduling. And he was like, look, so what ended up happening is he offered me this other role, the role that I ended up playing. Because he loved my passion he loved my audition, and he loved my passion for the project. And so he offered me this other role, and I got to name her. And so choosing the name Janet was actually a tribute to my birth mother, who was an addict and at times homeless. So it was sort of special that playing that role as the homeless mother was it very much hit home.
Right.
And Tiago is such a beautiful human. Like, all of his projects that he's done since then have really dealt with, his second film was about it was based off of a true story, a real person, about an autistic boy and his mother, and how he was communicating and no one would believe her. And then he just did a film on a family who, an actual real, a woman who he interviewed and spent time with, a single mother who used to be, I think, a dancer and an actress. Maybe she still is, but she has two autistic children. So all of his films are very, very rooted in these life circumstances.
Right.
But with Chocolate, the lead female, played by the wonderful Piercy Delt. I love Piercy. And Joao, who played her homeless friend, who was kind of my friend but not.
Yeah.
Looked out for our area.
Right.
Everybody in the film was just lovely, but the three of us really became friends with Tiago, and it was just a beautiful experience. But the response that we got from everyone, I mean, it obviously, for anybody listening, it deals with, or kind of ruins it if I say something. Just watch.
I know,
film.
that's why.
Not say anything. Yeah, the lead character is dealing with a health issue, so that's all I'm going to say. And Piercy just played it so beautifully. and it hits home for a lot of people.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm really grateful that I got to be a part of that project. Yeah.
I watched it and I was, I didn't know that I was going to feel that way. And that's real talk. It's not even like my my chest started feeling hot. Like the emotions were there. So I thought it was amazing, and it was a short film. It was very well done. So bravo. I know you've heard it. You said 2016, so bravo. I was impressed. Another film. Now this one I liked, but I loved all of them. So this one I liked, right? And you'll probably laugh. Maybe you won't. But Little Dead Riding Hood, right?
Yes.
So I like that, but I'm gonna tell you what I had a problem with.
Yeah.
When the police
can't be.
when the police got you, and I don't know if they arrested you or put you in. I don't know what they did with you. But I didn't hear from you anymore in the film, and I was,
You at the end.
What happened at the end?
I end the film. My face ends the film.
Okay, I got to look at the end. Maybe I was so disappointed because everything.
Like, where did Becky go?
They had the climax and the fight and all this stuff, and I'm like, where the hell is she? Right? Okay, let me look at the end of the film, and then I'll.
You'll have to watch the ending again. The ending, I end the film.
I'll reassess.
It pulls out to my point of view, and then you see my menacing look.
But that's my genre right there. I used to always look at like.
Really?
I love Sci-Fi Channel.
Campy horror.
Yeah, I love that.
That was so much fun to do. I forget. I think that was another, like, I maybe had auditioned for some other role or something, and then they came back to me and they're like, "Hey, you want to do this?" And I was like, "Yeah." Eric Balfour was so much fun to work with.
Yeah.
And that was so fun to do. Like, I had never done like a horror film. I never gotten to play like a bad guy.
Right.
Woman, whatever. It turns out that I'm a werewolf, but you never see me as a werewolf.
Right.
She was so much fun to play. And, we had talked about the writer, I think his name is Gabriel. Please forgive me. But we talked several times about, I'm like, there totally should be there has to be a sequel.
Yeah, how it ends. Well, I say how it ends, but obviously I didn't see the end because I didn't see you at the end.
Yeah, and I would have been like the lead villain, but it never happened.
Okay. Well, never say never.
It was a fun campy. Yeah, it was a fun. Asylum always does those, those spoof camp horror projects, and they're so much fun.
Yeah, but it was cool because you had like a lot of named, people in there. Yeah. I looked and I was like, oh, that was one of those projects that Romeo said from growing up hip hop that he was going off to work on, right? So seeing him in there, and then the cop, I can't remember his name, forgive me. But
he's hilarious.
Oh, really? He seems super serious. Well, let me.
Oh, Eric Balfour. You're talking about Eric.
Yes.
Okay, there's a deputy. One of the guys that's like a deputy. He's goofy.
Okay, yeah, he seems like he was. He was kind of goofy in the film.
Yeah, but no, Eric's, he's been around for, I think the first thing I saw him was probably like Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And then I think he was in some other like TV show, and I was like, he's cute.
How tall is he?
He's tall.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was really nice to work with. Yeah, he was really nice to work with.
Well, what about, and then I'm going to get to the real topic because now it's just nostalgia, right? So what about Michael Shannon? Like, he seems scary.
Oh, no. Man. Michael Shannon. I am putting it out into the world, literally, that I actually get to act opposite him in a substantial role.
Oh, really?
That is on my dream. That's a dream of mine.
Yes.
Yeah, that is number one. I feel like he is one of the most underrated actors.
I like him. I actually love him.
I know. I'm like, I don't know how he hasn't won all the Oscars.
Yeah. Well, now, go ahead.
Is so good.
Yeah.
And yeah, he does play these like really scary characters, but he is such a kind human. He's so nice. He's so, like, I remember when I was a fan.
Right.
So when I got this, I have to tell the story
Of
how I
course.
got this. Okay, so I see the breakdown for this character, for this film, and that it's with Michael Shannon, and it's shooting in Vegas, and it's a friend to play his friend. And I was like, so I submitted for it, and then my agent and manager at the time, I was like, guys, I have to, like, this has to happen. So I watched, that was like maybe a Thursday or Friday. I watched the Iceman.
Yeah.
On like that Saturday. Right. And as I'm looking at his face on the TV screen, I'm like, I'm going to be in this movie opposite with you. And then Monday I get the audition. And so I go and audition that week. And it's like an office, and I end up seeing a casting director that I know and love, who I booked me in my very first job, Liz Barnes. She was in the office. I was like, oh my gosh, what are you doing here? She's like, oh, this is my office right now. Da-da. But I was auditioning for, a different person. I was like, yeah, I just went in for this film. It's Michael Shannon. Da-da. I ended up booking it. And I was like, So it was supposed to be a local hire, which means, you'll get yourself there and you pay for your lodging. But they ended up paying for me to drive out to Vegas and, paid gas and mileage or whatever. And then they paid for me to stay in a hotel for the week. And I remember I was in the van with the guy that I was, who played my boyfriend or husband. I don't remember what we determined that we were. And we see Michael walking up the street, and I like grabbed his leg, and I was like, there he is. And then they like park the van, and they roll in the window or open the door or whatever.
Right.
And they're like, Michael, this is Amy. And Elijah. I think that was the name of the guy that I feel so bad. I'm bad with names. But faces, I remember faces. I'm horrible with names.
So trust me, I'm worse. Go ahead.
But they're like, this is Amy. And I think Elijah. They're like, hey, hi, nice to meet. Hi, I'm Michael. I was just like, yeah, I know. I was just so excited. And he was just so cool and so nice. But yes, he's intense. But he's remembered every single time I've seen him since then. He's remembered me, or maybe he might have be a little reminded. But as soon as he sees my face, he's like, he remembers me. And so, we ended up going to that movie. Ended up premiering at Sundance.
Okay.
And so we went to Sundance, and it was like just an otherworldly experience standing on stage with him and Imogen Poots and all the other actors and actresses. I was having like an existential crisis at the moment. Right. So I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I have like 2 lines in the film. Why am I standing? I don't deserve to be standing. Like, it was just, I was having a moment, that Sundance. I've since grown. But into my worthiness. So if it would happen now, I would have been standing up on that stage, staring out at everyone. Yes, I'm standing up here with my 2 lines. But he plays a band. So long story short, he has a band. And so like while we were in Vegas, he flew his band out or they flew, whatever. They came and played.
Wow.
At a local bar. Okay. While on our day off.
Did you go?
Of course. Like, we were all there. Yeah. Everybody was there. Like, we all came. And I don't even know how to describe his band. I literally can't. But it was just fun.
Yeah. What instrument did he play?
He sings.
He's the singer.
Guitar. Yeah, he sings, and I'm pretty sure he plays the guitar.
Wow.
Yeah. And then at Sundance, his band performed again.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, his band performed one of the nights. If you watch any interview with him, he has such a dry, like that New York dry sense of humor. He's funny. But yeah,
he's intense in those movies. And I tell you what, when I do see him, I know I'm gonna watch this movie because I know it's going to be good, right?
And it's a departure. That character is a departure. I mean, there's still some of those other couple of characters that creep in, but it's a departure from what he had done prior to that, because it is a love story.
Right.
So he's playing a romantic lead in this. So that's a different, a departure from him playing like killers.
Yeah, exactly. He still had that killer look, no, when he went out to Paris.
Right. Well, that's when he's in the villainous mood.
Hey, so real quick before we go on, the movie is Frank and Lola, right?
Yes.
Very, very excellent film, excellent film. So
Yes.
I recommend anyone who's listening to go out and watch it. All right, so now I'm gonna go back to the biracial.
Okay. Yeah.
In Hollywood, well, I don't know if I say the reason why I hesitate to say Hollywood now, even though usually that's the buzzword that you say, right? I went to North Carolina and I toured one of the studios out there, and I'm like, they got a studio in North Carolina, and I know Atlanta is doing it as well, right? So, so
in
I
the
say
entertainment business.
So entertainment business, right?
Yeah.
So how is it being biracial? Like, how are you accepted or not accepted? Or just give me your experience. I don't even know how to judge that question, but what's your experience?
Okay, so let me preface this with growing up, race was not something that was really discussed in my home. So I was raised by my aunt and uncle who are both Black. So it was my dad's brother and his wife. My birth mother was white, birth father Black. Neither of them are still living. Growing up, race wasn't necessarily talked about.
Okay.
And it was never talked about. It was never mentioned. It was never said that I was never technically adopted, but we'll just say adopted. That I, we just lived as if I was actually their child, even though I'm sure people had questions like, how did, so it wasn't really something that I was necessarily, even growing up in Texas. Now, in hindsight, yes, there were definitely things like I was picked on, but I thought it was just because I was an awkward girl. That people would pick on, that boys and other kids would pick on me. It could have been racially charged, because growing up in Plano, Texas in the 80s, 90s, we were definitely the minority. So coming into the business, I think early on, again, it still wasn't something that was at the forefront of my mind,
right?
Being biracial, but definitely just being ethnic in general. I would have to oscillate between, like, do I wear my hair when it was longer? So, I just shaved my head at the end of last year, or the beginning of last year. So my hair's short now, but when it was longer, it was like, do I wear it curly? Do I wear it straight? Do I, that was always I always had to figure that out.
Right.
Do I appear more ethnically ambiguous, closer to Euro, whatever, or do I lean towards, being ethnic and being Black and be curly? There was definitely always, I guess that I was conscious of the idea because I was light-skinned that maybe I was more favorable, but it wasn't anything that was ever an actual conversation that I was a part of. Oh, sorry, my computer just made some noise. It was never an actual conversation.
Right.
I'd heard things like, ethnically, like I'm in the ethnically ambiguous category. When I moved to California in 2004, that was like the big category. That was, I think that that term had kind of just hit the scene from what I recall. And so, something's popping into my mind. When I lived in Texas, I have to share this. I was doing a commercial for Texas Lottery. My director was a very tall Black man with an afro, and I think his name was King.
Nice.
I remember distinctly him coming into we were at the fitting, and him coming into the room that I was in, and he was like, okay, so this is going to be really weird coming from me. But the client, Texas Lottery, so is old white men.
Right.
The client wants to know if you can be more ethnic. Now, this is the first time I've ever heard this. And I was like, huh?
Right.
And he said, I know. He goes, I just want, if you can just be a little bit more like urban. And I'm like, okay. Okay, okay. He's like, I'll come back and you tell you give me, and I was like, okay.
Right.
So I'm like sitting there. I don't know what this was not the time of like iPhones and Android, so I didn't look anything up. I don't know what I'd referenced.
Right.
But he comes back in the room and he's like, okay, so what do you got?
Oh,
So
goodness.
I deliver my dialogue, and whatever I did, he was like, he laughed and he was like, don't ever do that again. I was like, I know, right? So, by standards of by American what we have how do I phrase this? How we have been conditioned by American conditioning.
Yes.
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 2020 really opened me up to my conditioning, my personal conditioning from growing up in Texas. And even though I grew up in a Black home, because race was never really discussed, it was only discussed in the manner of like, you better not like a white boy. And then in my brain, I'm like, but I'm half white. So that right. I understand that. But like, we never discussed that. It was never a discussion. So it wasn't in the forefront of my brain of really thinking in terms of race, to be honest. So in my conditioning, I do realize that I had shied away from looking ethnic, looking Black. So I would straighten my hair a lot. Or when I wore it curly, I would make sure that I always wanted it to be close to my head. I didn't want it to be, and I actually discussed this. I actually shared a lot of this in what I call my hair stories when I reveal that I shaved my head.
Yeah, I was definitely going to bring up the hair stories, but we'll come back to that. Go ahead.
Yeah. So it definitely like, so I was very conscious of like, what was accepted, what I'd been what not just me, but all of us had been conditioned to accept, that looking more Euro was what was favored. So I leaned towards that. But I don't know that, but it wasn't necessarily like a conscious thought of, I'm doing this because.
Right. No, I get that.
And it wasn't until 2020 when I started to like really, when, all the protests started happening and everything, and I refuse to call them riots.
Yeah.
I'll just state that.
Yeah.
Because everybody else gets to be called protests, but for some reason, Black people, it's a riot.
Right.
But anyway, when the protests happened and everything was happening, and we're in this space where we're really allowed to like have the moment of thinking about all of this. I had a lot of like, I had some moments with myself of like, oh, what's my stuff? Like, what's my conditioning? Oh yeah. And that's, what I ended up sharing in and I think it's probably in some stories and things during that time on Instagram. I did share it, maybe some live videos, probably conversations, but definitely in hair stories. I did share all this thought. So when it comes to the business, I definitely leaned into that ethnically ambiguous, because I mean, let's be honest, I do look ethnically ambiguous.
Right.
People most of the time think I'm Puerto Rican or Dominican or Colombian. People mostly think I'm South American.
Yep.
And that even came to a head last year when I was up for this film. The writer, producer, director, they sought me out, and it was written for a Latina. It was written by a Latina, and I wasn't going to lie and say I was. And I was like, if it comes down to it, no, I'm not Latina.
Right.
But, and it ended up going to the role ended up going to a Latina, and I accepted that. I was very sad and upset, but I understood. But anyway, so I get that I look like a lot of things. Like I went into a gas station somewhere in California, and this guy almost fell over the counter because he said I looked like his Egyptian wife's long lost sister.
Oh my God.
He thought that her Egyptian sister walked. And I was like, I'm not Egyptian. I've never even been to Egypt.
Right.
But I have gotten literally everything under the sun, Lee.
Right.
But of course, I know what I am. But I also say that I am biracial. Like, that is the actual truth.
Right.
And biracial is a race.
Absolutely.
In America, we're forced to say black or white. You know, you're forced to say, no, I'm black. And I'm like, but I'm not. I am black and I'm white.
Right.
And so I have to acknowledge that. And it's hard because we're such a divided community of people.
Yes.
But I am literally two things.
Yes.
And I can't deny one or the other. Now, I had been denying my black side, and I came to realize that, oh, I need to own that.
Right.
And so the past couple of years has been me owning it.
Right.
Me stepping into that more for whatever it means for myself. It doesn't mean that I'm necessarily acting any different, but I'm acknowledging and I'm studying and I'm exploring more than I had before. But as far as my career, it's a positive and it's a negative. Commercially, I think it's helped me to book different things. You know, I definitely, like I said, I've played a Latin mother, and that was not like, I didn't originally audition for a particular, go in for the Latin role, but then I went in for something else, and then they cast me as the mom of this little girl who actually was like Armenian, and then the dad was Hispanic. So I don't know what we were.
Right.
But then the client was like, "Can we put more makeup on her face to cover her freckles?" So she can look a little bit more Latin. So yeah, it's interesting, like what people think, but I don't actively try to like pretend that I'm something else.
Right.
But as far as black roles, I don't feel like I fit in.
Okay.
And I don't feel like there is a place for me unless it's specifically written biracial.
Right.
Or because I feel like even with black filmmakers, we're still it's shifting and changing, but I still think, and this is twofold, because while I want to be accepted, I see how mainstream has only accepted my lightness, right? The Halle Berrys of the world, right? The lighter skin, the biracial, and it is time that darker skinned women get to shine,
right?
Because they are talented, just as talented and beautiful, right? If not more. And so it is amazing and beautiful, and it's about time that those actors and actresses are getting to work, are getting the limelight.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I applaud it. But in that, I do find that I don't know where it's hard to see where I fit in the black shows if it isn't something specifically written that she's biracial. I've auditioned for The Chi, and I'm like, y'all, why are you submitting for me? They call me in, but I'm like, there ain't nobody on The Chi that looks like me or sounds like me.
Right.
So unless it's like the girl who came from, I don't know anything about Chicago, but like came from the other side of Chicago, like
to the other side.
into this neighborhood. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I don't know. Like I'm not on the show.
Right.
And that's okay. Like my story doesn't need to be told, like I accept that, but it's hard. It is hard because there are certain things that I'm like, I'm never going to be in Wakanda, y'all. So it's hard. It's hard. And I don't want to sound like, oh, what was the light-skinned girl? Because I don't mean that by any means whatsoever, but it is definitely, I remember reading an article about Rashida Jones.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Rashida Jones is biracial. But Rashida Jones is very ethnically ambiguous.
Right.
Like most of it, like if you didn't know that she was black, you would think she was something else.
Right.
And so, and she's played, and the article was asking, like, so she was in Black as Fuck.
Right.
Or Black AF, excuse me.
Yeah.
But I mean, and people were like, who is Rashida to be playing in a show that's called that? And it's like, y'all, it's literally written by Kenya about his family.
Right.
His wife is biracial.
Yeah. So it's
like, come on. But,
that's a good show too.
And the satire of all of it. Unless it's something like that, like, yeah. But they were like, here's somebody where has she been in black culture, in black film, in black TV? And it's like, but has she been accepted?
Right.
Like, that was my question.
Right.
It's like, you're questioning her worthiness to be in a show called Black AF.
Right.
But where has she been? I mean, I don't know. So that's my question to the business or to whoever wrote that article. My question is, well, has she been accepted in those types of in those shows, in those movies, as just being Black?
Right.
So that's where I feel like I fall in, is like, I don't, I'll audition for these shows and I'm like, they're looking like, I remember auditioning for Snowfall, and the casting director,
I like Snowfall. Look, I like.
When I finished my audition,
Yeah.
The character was Aunt somebody. She was like, she used to be like a dancer or stripper or something.
Okay.
And she was like performed. And I ended up meeting the actress. She ended up being a friend of a friend. And I ended up meeting her at a dinner. I just happened to meet her at a dinner. And I was like, oh my gosh, I auditioned for the role.
Yeah.
But I remember finishing that audition, and the casting director, and I did it to the best of my ability of just being me.
Right.
Not trying to put like a thing on it. Not
Yeah.
trying to, quote unquote, be Black.
Yeah.
Like, stereotypical. But when I finished that audition, this is just my perception. That she might have thought something else. But like, when I finished that audition, that casting director just looked at me.
Mm.
And I was like, oh God. And I was dying inside.
Yeah.
She just looked at me and she was like, okay.
Wow.
I was like, okay, thanks. Like, and I just knew, I was like, nope, that's not. But I'm very conscious of I say all that to say is, like, a lot of times I don't know where I fit in. Commercially, I've figured it out,
Yeah.
I play a lot of I play Black mom.
Right.
Or mom of Black children.
Right.
With my Black husband.
Right.
Or mom of biracial children with my white or Hispanic husband. Or Asian. I think I've had an Asian husband.
Okay.
So, I've navigated commercially. Theatrically, TV and film, it's been, I think a lot of the conversation a lot of times is they don't know what to do with me, or I don't know where this is the year of me figuring out where I fit in, but either that, or it's just, I'm going to fit in where I fit in, but I'm going to create it for myself.
Yeah. So
I don't even know if that's a full answer, but
no, that was great insight.
It's multifaceted.
Right.
I know my privilege, but I think that in a lot of ways that privilege is definitely being pushed away.
Okay.
Like I was up for NCIS, an episode of NCIS last year.
Okay.
And I came in, I was what we call pinned. And I was the first choice coming out of the callback.
Right.
And then by that Wednesday, that was a Monday night. By Wednesday morning, I was second choice. And then when I watched it, the actress who booked it, now she was on a show. She was, she has her own show, or she's on, she's series regular on a different show.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to match a brother, and he was darker.
Right.
And so, I think in part it's like I might have not gotten that, because if I coming out first place or first choice and then not, there's other factors.
Right.
But in part it could be, no, I didn't match the brother because I was too light skinned.
Mm.
So there's so many different things. I'm definitely not a woe is me person.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot to navigate, because I feel like there is a lot of space in which I don't necessarily know where I belong.
That is the answer right there. But, from a, what do I call myself, an audience, a consumer of the show, whatever the term is, I'm starting to see a definite shift where there's more of a blended type family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then I believe maybe it's because I'm expanding the different shows and movies that I watch, that I'm starting to see it in a lot of movies too. A lot of them, though, unfortunately, maybe comedic type movies. You know what I mean? But there are some that are serious. So the reason why I'm saying all this is that I know 2023 you will find your place, and you will find your place in these roles, because it's heading in that direction anyway. We need to change the messaging, right? That we're all here together. It doesn't really matter which
it doesn't have to be the separation of like, this is a Black show.
Exactly.
This is a Black film. It's like, no, it's just a film, and it has a lot of different types of people who look different ways, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like, even though it was, there's some tarnishing on it. The Cosby Show was a beautiful example of that.
Right.
Where it was just a family who happened to be Black, And yes, they dealt with things that that a Black family would deal with, specifically, but it was all encompassing.
Right.
It wasn't just that. That wasn't the focal point. And I think that we need more television and film that it's, you can have an American Hustle with lots of different races.
Right.
You can have these mainstream stories with different race of people. It doesn't just have to be white, or it doesn't just have to be black, or it doesn't just have to be Hispanic or Asian. Like, each culture doesn't have to just have their own movie.
Right.
Like, yes, please do, because we need more stories that are centered in these different cultures so that we can learn and expand and grow as people.
There it is.
But we also need to be blended together in these bigger blockbusters, because that is the truth of life.
That's it. Damn, I was gonna fit that in, but you fit it in for me, right? I mean, that's the true experience, right, that we deal with. You don't just, well, I guess some people will, if you're in certain areas where it's all black or all white, but for the most part, and maybe I shouldn't even say that, right? But for my experience, I'm around everybody, and I enjoy that, being able to participate in that full experience.
And how do we grow and live together through our experiences?
Right.
And how does the Asian kid and the Black kid come together and become friends? And how do they learn from each other, from their different cultures?
Right. I had a great, I know you said you had some challenges, I guess, in your childhood, right? My experience,
Yes.
I mean, I really had a blended group of friends, right, who were amazing for my socialization and growing up. Black, white, Hispanic. He was Korean specifically, and we did everything together, right? And then I joined the army, and then there was a lot of everybody. And so I had a good experience. And then I moved to California. It's a lot more progressive, right? So, and it's a shame when I go home in Baltimore and stuff like that, and there's not that mental expansion, right?
Yes.
Where you can just,
and that's in all and that's in all white neighborhoods, that's in all Hispanic neighborhoods, that's in all Black neighborhoods. It's not just one doing it and not the other. We're all doing it, and we're in these neighborhoods where it's just everybody looks the same and it has the same experiences.
Yeah.
It creates a very closed-minded, on all fronts, it creates a very closed-minded view of the world and of other people. And then our view of other people is literally just what we're fed.
Right. Exactly.
And what's been passed down to us.
Exactly.
And that's how we don't grow as people. That's how we don't expand culturally.
Right. Oh, we're on here a long time. Let me get this other question right. So you warned me of this, but I fell right into it. I fell into it. So, like, what are a few tips that you would give for young ladies and women who are pursuing a career in the entertainment industry? Just from your experience, something maybe, and you can even word it as, if I know then what I know now, I would have done this differently. Like those type of tips.
Yeah, no, I'm just taking a moment.
Okay. Because I tell you what, if I knew that I could honestly have had a opportunity at being an actor, I think I would have tried it, but I was super, super shy. And I was always concerned about what people thought. And it kind of crippled me from my creativity, is what I would call it.
Yeah.
So, so maybe that's it. Don't be crippled by what people think. Just go for your dreams. But I do have, and I'll tell you this, I'm naming names. I had two people who are very, very successful in the entertainment industry who were in my high school class. Like, so Taraji P. Henson.
Oh, amazing.
And Aaron Spears. And I'm like, why the hell didn't I go to their drama class? Right? So I'm running around going to McDonald's and doing nothing, playing sports, but
you had your path.
I had my path. I had my path, yeah. I did do go ahead. I'll let you answer, and then I'll tell my little story before we go.
Okay. I really, really, really know who you are. I mean, it will save you
so much, like really be grounded in who you are, because especially if you're starting off young, um, because there's so much that can influence you. But I think that if you can really, really know your power as a human and also as a woman, and being able to use your voice and speak up for yourself when you don't feel comfortable, or you have questions, or you have concerns, or whatever it may be. Have your voice, own your voice. And stand strong in that. Be kind to yourself. Self-love goes a long way. Be kind to yourself, but also kind to others. This business thrives on community. You cannot make, I mean, you could make a film by yourself. But that's pretty much not how the business works 99% of the time. You are working with lots of different people. And so being able to be open to different people and share space with different people, and learn from everyone and be gracious. But yeah, just really being kind and know who you are, kind to yourself, loving to yourself, know who you are, know your power, your voice, own it. And don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to fail, and then get right back up. And take breaks.
So take breaks.
Rest when you need to. Rest.
Right.
Yeah. There's so many more things, but that's what's just
those are excellent. Those are excellent points for anything you do.
Yeah.
You know,
and having
I mean?
a very strong, connection to whatever it is that whether it's, you call it, say, God, source, universe,
spirituality,
spirit, whatever it is for you, having a very strong connection and practice. Finding that for yourself.
So, Amy,
what's your story?
Oh, I did say I was going to tell a story. It's real stupid and irrelevant, but there was a college, I don't know, I was stationed somewhere, and they had an open audition. And it was just I guess it was local, you call it, like a local, so they just called some people in. And I went in and I auditioned to be this doctor. They actually said, "Okay, yeah, you're good." Like,
dumb line.
Come back, right? So I was like, cool. But I never went back. I didn't take the opportunity. I didn't take advantage of it, right? That could have been the start, the launching point.
Well, you know what? It's never too late. You know what? If it's something that you're interested in, who says that it's too late?
Oh, exactly.
There are always roles out there. So it's never too late to pursue what it is that you want to pursue. Somebody could be in a career for all of their life and all of a sudden be like, I want to make pottery or whatever, or I want to build something, or
yes,
you always, until you're on your deathbed, it's never too late.
Just do it. Try it. Right. So maybe I might.
Maybe there's local theater in Marietta.
There's something in Temecula. I don't know if you're familiar with Temecula, but that's the next city over. No. And I know they have like a playhouse or something over there.
Is San Diego near?
San Diego is about 70 miles south.
Oh, okay. So it's still further.
Yeah.
Because I know there's always stuff in San Diego.
Yeah, always there in San Diego. That's a good spot.
Temecula or Long Beach?
Long Beach is, that's up there a little bit. Far? It's not even that it's that far. It's that I have to get on the 91. Yeah. And I don't know how much you drive around, but I know if you're up in that LA area, it sucks, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just driving. But I will tell you, I welcome back driving to auditions and self.
Oh my goodness! Absolutely, absolutely. You definitely needed that.
I welcome back.
I had a friend of mine. He was he's a aspiring comedian, and he had just gotten up the nerve, and he was doing some stand up, and he was getting some recognition, and then COVID hit, and so it just shut everything down. And they were trying to do these virtual shows, and it was decent, but it's just not the same.
It's not the same as being in live audience. Yeah. No.
So all right, so this is what I was going to ask you. I asked you a few questions on here. So you be me now. What would you have asked yourself, and then ask yourself it, and then answer it?
Oh my god. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I sprung that one on you.
Yes. What would I ask you?
No, what would you ask yourself? What?
Oh, if I were you, what would I have asked you?
Yes.
Me. Okay, so the first thing that comes to mind is what's next.
Yes. I love it.
Okay, so what's next? Well, here we are at the beginning of the year.
Yes.
We may be on here for another 30 minutes. So, so I'm announcing that. I'm not officially announcing this, but I just had, I had a moment last Friday over a self-tape. That's what, for anybody that's not in the business, this is what we're doing now as actors. Instead of going to auditions, for the most part, we are taping our auditions on our phones or computers or whatever, cameras, at our homes. And I had a moment with my very first audition. It was a commercial audition, and it sent me over the edge. And I came to the conclusion that I was like, I'm done. So I'm not done with the business, but I'm done, I think, in the manner in which I have been operating, in allowing myself to be operated. But I think I want this to be there. A transition has to happen. And so I have been doing commercials and, all of my career. But they've definitely, since 2017, 2018 have been, it's taken off. And
right.
I am a working actor because I don't have to do another job.
Right.
And in moments it gets tight, and in other moments it's, very, very fruitful. But it's time for me to take the next steps in order to expand. Yes, I've done TV and film, but to really do TV and film.
Oh, yeah.
Open to new, bigger roles. Not that I haven't auditioned for those larger roles, but really get down to why haven't I booked those roles? And what do I need to progress in my career? So the focus for this year is really, one, there's 2 projects that I need to develop that have been in my mind to develop for myself, but also getting back into class.
Okay.
There is a film that I want to produce and star in, and there's a mini series, both of which were based off of plays that I've done. That now is the time to get those projects made as vehicles for myself, but also work with my team to really hone in on the types of television shows and movies that I want to be in, so that TV and film can then take the forefront and I can step back from commercials.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah.
Do you know have you already figured out which school you're going to attend? I know you named a few.
I actually just did. Yeah, I just did an actors retreat this weekend. It was all over Zoom, but it was all day Saturday and Sunday with a group called the Casting Directors Cut, which is a group of casting directors that came together in 2020. And Larry Moss was one of the teachers, and I think everybody's heard of Larry Moss, but I'd actually never been to his studio. Okay. And after watching him work with the actors who got up and worked, I was like, I need to audit his class. So I have reached out to audit his class. And then a friend of mine, Chelsea Harris, who is her career in TV and film is just blossoming. She's on Snowpiercer, and she was just in is she in the neighborhood? I think she's on The Neighborhood.
Oh, really?
A recurring role.
Okay.
I might be lying at the name of it, but she has a recurring role in a comedy.
Okay.
On a sitcom. But she's into Snowpiercer. She's a series regular on Snowpiercer, one of my good friends. But she referred me to the studio that she's been studying at called Bird Studio.
Okay.
So I am auditing both of those places. And yeah, I'm going to pick probably between the 2 of them to see, to get back into studying
good.
Honing my talent, going even deeper.
Right.
But yeah, like I get really good feedback. It's just, I know I need to go deeper. I know that personally.
Right.
So it's commercials is surface.
Yeah.
For the most part, I'm not doing, it's not any heavy lifting, acting wise. Sometimes it is, in those off chances. But yeah, I want to go deeper.
Good.
So That's the plan.
So you're looking at doing more short films? I like the
I have 3 that I did
Wedding.
last year, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I had one with Brian Chamberlain. He's an up and coming writer, director. He's been a producer on The Morning Show and Orange is the New Black. He wrote a film, a short film, and I had the opportunity to be in it. And I cannot wait till that hits the festival circuit. And then I did another short film. I did 2 others, and one was part of Jake Owen's horror festival or horror contest.
Oh boy,
called Alone. Did you watch Alone?
Yes, I did.
Yeah,
I did.
So I was really proud of that. I was excited to get that, and that was I'm calling in more offers. That was an offer. That was a friend of a friend. A friend told a friend about me. He saw my stuff and he was like, "Hey, do you want to play this role?" And I read it and I was like, "Yes."
Yes.
So more of that. And then another short film, Surprised to See Me. And I got to play, well, I won't ruin it, but I got to play something a character that I have not gotten to play before. So that was really fun.
Expansion.
And
good.
That was also an offer from somebody who remembered me. I think we had auditioned together.
Nice.
And then I was a reader for a class that he was in. And he was like, "Hey, I have this character. I have this short film. Do you want to do it?" And I was like, yeah. So yeah, more of that. For sure.
I like that. I always talk and wonder, like, oh man, they're in this film together, or they're in this piece together. I wonder if they recommended them, or I wonder if they. And so now here you are,
how was
bringing
it?
it to
an audition, or
yeah, that's pretty cool.
It's fun when you get more direct offers. Are great. I'm like, more of that, please.
Yeah,
like more of that in like even the big like. Can there's a TV show be like, you know what? We saw Amy in such and such. We want to offer her this role. Yes, please. Thank you.
2023, more direct offers. Let's just put it out there in the universe. There it is.
And I don't know when this is coming out, but if anybody's watching 1923 with Helen Mirren, and I did not get to work with Helen Mirren or Harrison Ford.
That's the Yellowstone thing, right?
Yellowstone spinoff.
Yeah.
A prequel. Because I think there was another prequel.
There's another prequel in the 1800s,
1823, I think. So this is 1923. But I kind of have a crush on Brandon Sklenar. I'll say that now. I think that's how you say his name, or Sklenar. I don't know how you say his last name. Anyway, but I am in an episode. It's going to be episode 8.
Okay.
And I am singing.
Oh, really?
Yes. And that was my first artistic love. So hopefully this will come out after.
I'm looking forward to it.
You're hearing it now. I'm sure it's fine that I talk about it. Yeah. It's not not breaking any news story or anything.
No, I'll wait a little bit.
But yes, I think it's episode 8 of 1923. So that was really exciting to do. So that's amazing. How I ended the year.
Yeah,
so I'm excited for that. On TV. So hey.
All right, more direct offers and much success. Yeah. Who? What was that?
Shonda Rhimes.
Oh yeah.
Calling that in.
Boy, call that in.
Yes.
But
thank you.
Continued success, Amy. I'll be watching. I watched your I did watch your when you lost it this weekend a little bit. So
I lost it. I didn't lose it on camera, but I lost it.
Yeah, I bet you gave us the censored version, but you came back and that was awesome. So I love how you are so open. Huh?
Thank you. I know that that's not how all people choose to use their Instagram or use their social media or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think that it's this world that we live in. I choose to thrive. I thrive on. I was having this conversation with a friend of mine last night. We went to dinner. And, she's somebody who, she's a beautiful family. Her and her husband and her 2 little boys are just they're all pretty.
Right.
And they have a beautiful life.
Yeah.
But they also go through some stuff.
Yeah.
But that's not what she chooses to share. And that's what we have to understand is everybody's choosing to share what they choose to share on their social media. And we have to take it at that.
Yeah.
And we can't assume that everybody's life is peaches and cream. We can't assume that everyone, because you see me on TV that like I'm rolling in the dough right now.
Right.
Or that I lived some charmed life or whatever. I claim that for myself, but I'm a human. I still go through craziness. And I choose to be open and honest about that's just how I choose to share on my social media. Sometimes I might overshare. But I like to talk. Clearly, I like to talk. And this is me from repressed childhood of not talking, to now I just talk and can't shut up. But I like sharing.
Yeah.
Because I know that somebody out there, and I've gotten it from people, like people have written me and said, thank you so much for sharing XYZ. I feel the same, or I've had that experience, or even the thing with my teeth. Like so many people have come out and be like, oh my God, I have fake teeth, or I had to get my teeth taken out because XYZ, and I have a flipper and I had to get a bone graft. And I'm like, oh my God, had I not,
Yeah.
so I feel not alone. And so I know when I share, other people are then like, oh, I'm not alone in this experience. And when I shared that this weekend, I had a lot of actors reach out and say, I'm experiencing the same thing. And so it creates community.
Yeah.
And a level of there's so much that's fake in the world. And so I think us sharing authentically, and no matter what that is, if that's what you're just choosing to share all the cool stuff, to me, that's inspiring of like, oh my God, you went to that awesome restaurant. Let me try it. Oh my God, you went on that vacation. Oh my gosh, you got that cool whatever. Well, maybe I want to, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's how you choose to view it.
Right.
From a place of like lack or a place of expansion. And I choose to view social media from a place of expansion, rather than, oh, you have that and I don't, and I feel bad. I mean, there are definitely moments where I'm like, man, your abs are amazing. If only I had been working out this whole time, my abs would look like that. But I'm not going to be like, I'm not going to starve myself for 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Like, so it's all in how do you digest it?
There you go.
But y'all are going to be seeing a lot more. Like, I have a friend that just starts sharing memes, and I'm like, I think I'm going to start doing that.
Oh, really?
I censor myself. I do censor myself.
Okay.
I have found that I actually had a conversation. I actually did this in my stories where I found that there are two different Amy's. I mean, we have all different facets of our personalities, right?
Right.
So I think that I definitely share more in my stories than I do on my page.
Okay.
There's maybe a more censored, so to speak, not censored. I don't like the word censored, but it's a more watered down version of me on my page than it is in my stories. I'm a little bit more, not real, but I'm like, well, this is what happened today in my stories, and I don't do it on my page. So this is the year to like merge the two, where like I'm just full me on everything.
Right. Yeah, I like your
it's
stories.
Not this, like curated. Thank you.
I do like your stories.
If only I still have them. I'm like, I save them. I'm like, maybe I should just start sharing the like Throwback Thursday.
Yeah.
This story that I shared in 2003. Instagram didn't exist then, but you know what I mean.
That would be cool, because I can only, I'm gonna stop this interview, but I'm gonna keep talking. So anyway, no, because I look and I see stories, and then I see reels, and then I see, I'm like, what is the difference, right? So I went on Google, and I'm like, what's the difference between reels and stories? And I kind of got an explanation. They were like, reels are more out there, I guess, and stories are more, I don't know.
Well, it stays on your page.
So
reels are on your page, and then stories are just there for 24 hours.
So that's the big difference.
That's literally the only difference.
Gotcha.
You could do a reel, like your stories could technically be a reel.
Right.
It's just that the reel is on your actual page, like it sits there on your page, and it's there for forever until you delete it. But stories are literally only there for 24 hours, unless you delete it before.
Got you. So, okay, got it. I think I got it. I can talk a little bit about that later, but got it. No, but
yeah, I think there's certain things that like I find funny, and I'm like, I'm not gonna post that. And then I'm like, why the heck not? Like, live life. I think that people have sometimes, and I think this is what I said in this particular story. I think people, and I've had this conversation before. It's actually with an actor. People, I think, have can have a notion of a person, or I think that people sometimes I can give off a more, not necessarily conservative, but more like, I don't know a word for
right.
Like I'm smiling and I'm putting my hands underneath my chin.
Right.
Like cutesy, like personality, like, but I'm a little bit more acerbic and sarcastic and opinionated, and I sometimes can be very biting and the thing in my thoughts and things that I say. Than what people might on the outside perceive. And I think I share that more in my stories than I do on my actual page. So a little bit more of just a more fullness of the full embodied Amy.
Right.
Than the yeah.
Well, like I said, I love your content, so keep it coming. Absolutely. And I'll tell you what, honestly, Amy, it inspired me because I do podcasting, right? But you do experience things like day to day. And so what I try to do is not, like I just did one yesterday when I was getting my oil change. And I remember, because it's hindsight, right, is the podcast. So I remember back when I was younger and I had a car. My mom had bought me a car. And at some point, the engine burnt up, right? And so my mom's boyfriend at the time was like, he needs to learn how to take care of a car. He needs to go get oil. And I had gotten an oil change. I'm like, dude, it's not on me. But at this moment in my life, I was 2,000 something miles over the recommended time to go. Because I was quote unquote too busy, to go get it. So then I had to think back, did I change the oil, right? Or was I just being a kid and wanting to be right at the time? So the whole point of that little dumb story is that I want to be able to share some stuff as well. I talk about how I didn't graduate from high school. I didn't get to walk. I passed, but I didn't get to walk with the graduating class because I wasn't interested in school. Right. So these different things in how.
And that's okay.
Exactly. Because now I'm looking at things differently.
That's okay.
I'm looking at things differently now. I'm looking at it from a perspective of not only, I didn't care because it still doesn't bother me, but I deprived my mom, right, of that moment. I deprived my family of that moment. And that's what I think about. And so, we get wrapped up in our own selves. And anyway, that's a whole nother story.
But
yeah.
I will say, when we authentically live our lives,
yes, ma'am,
there are going to be people that get disappointed.
Absolutely.
Because unless they don't have expectations on you.
I love it.
So like,
I love that.
I'm sure I could be seen as I've deprived my parents, my aunt and uncle who raised me of a daughter who was a doctor.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
But you started.
I started. They don't approve of what I do. But at the end of the day, I can't feel bad about that.
No.
And you can't feel bad about that. You authentically chose something that was authentic for yourself.
Right.
And that should be okay. And if they unconditionally love you, they're okay with it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Look at this. I'm getting therapy sessions. How much I owe you, Amy?
Look, I mean, if somebody, this transition doesn't work as fast as I need it to, TV and film from commercials, I'm going to need another paycheck. So.
Don't be offering, right?
I have been told that I give really good advice. I'm like, should I just be a life coach? I don't know. I have no credentials, but send me people and I'll work through some shit for you.
Yeah.
But no, I think that honestly, it's like if we're authentically living our lives, and it doesn't mean go around hurting people,
of course,
intentionally,
right?
But sometimes our what is true for us might not be what other people think of, or expect from us. But like, if we're living true to what really our soul is telling us is best for us, and but also we have to understand that this way of school, how we have been taught, school,
that's the thing.
Necessarily that institution doesn't, and the way it's taught to us it's taught to us in order for us to go into the workforce, work until we're however old, and then retire. And it's taught from this very capitalistic, like, you do this and then you do this and then you do that. And school in itself is not, I'm not saying school is bad. Like, we all need to learn. Kids need to learn things, right? But kids are homeschooled now, like, and they're brilliant. So like this institution of education of how we teach it.
Yeah.
It can be taught in a completely different
Absolutely.
way.
And it should be taught in a completely different way, but that's neither here nor there.
Every kid learns different.
Right.
That's a whole nother
conversation. All right, Amy. Hey, I really appreciate the time that you've given me. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Hopefully, one, we can do this again later on.
Yeah.
And two, we can go to Africa together, because that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
So let me know on that if you're doing it. I really do want to go. And I'm not going to start a whole nother conversation. I'll leave it at that. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
And any last words? Or
bring the whole family.
Check out. I know I will too. Check out. Let's go. Little Dead Rotten Hood. I love that because I'm a sci-fi guy. So you don't know. Like when I watched it, I was like, this is good. And then I loved Frank and Lola. So check those out. And Chocolate. That's on. It's on YouTube now.
Yeah, you can watch Chocolate on YouTube.
So
I think it's also on iTunes.
And iTunes, yeah, you gave those. So check those out. Amazing. Matter of fact, watch Chocolate first. Amazing. So thank you so much.
And watch Alone.
Alone, yeah. I didn't name all of them. I was going to go through like all of them that I saw on IMDb.
I'm like, let's list them that I'm the lead in. Alone and The Wedding Scene.
The wedding scene was so funny. It was really funny.
My friend Savannah, the writer of Quarantine Therapy is the writer of The Wedding Scene. My friend Savannah Cox.
That was so fun. Savannah, that was really funny. I did like that. I appreciated that one.
Yeah.
So
thank you. Yeah, Savannah, she's a very talented writer.
Oh my gosh. So are you like that person?
Like which one?
In the wedding scene.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, it should be this way.
Very similar. She is. I will question things.
Yeah.
I think definitely maybe not to that extent, but like I definitely, things don't make sense. I'm like, wait, what?
But we just met. No, anyway, okay. All right, I'm really officially ending it now. Thank you so much for being on Hindsight the podcast, and we will talk again soon, shortly, hopefully. All right. Bye. Bye.
Hindsight is 20/20, hindsight is key. To learn that, you don't need no type of degree. Learn from the past, see what the present gon' be. I'm a wise man, look at these blessings on me. Hindsight is 20/20, hindsight is key. To learn that, you don't need no type of degree. Learn from the past, see what the present gon' be. I'm a wise man, look at these blessings on me.